Hello, Inklings! Today we are reviewing The Lost Company by Michael Maguire. Before we dive into the indie review, let's give a little bit of context about what this story is all about. Basically, this empire is conquering all of these different nations until they get to this far outreaching nation with these incredible warriors. And these warriors are able to withstand this encroaching empire and basically make a stand and put a stop to their progress, despite their advanced military tactics. And it's because these people have access to magic and other aggressive fighting styles. But during one of these battles, a group of soldiers basically gets caught behind enemy lines when the rest of the army retreats. And this squad of soldiers has to find a way to survive without being caught or killed behind enemy lines with all of these soldiers around them with little food, little resources, and it takes all of their military training and determination to be able to push through these incredibly challenging circumstances. So with that context in mind, let's dive into this indie review. The Immersion I ended up giving an 8.5 out of 10, and a lot of that was just due to the simple nature of the story being told. So although it was still immersive, we don't get a ton of scope or different situations because we're mostly following this one group of people. But still, you have these several nations, but you have, like I said, the main one, that's the empire that's encroaching, that's Anian, or Fisties, as they're called. They hit a wall with these ethereal warriors, which are the ones that we're following as they get caught behind enemy lines. We get to see things like battlefields, different cultures, villages, mountain landscapes. So it's basic, but it's still immersive. You still get to feel the landscape and the scenery as these soldiers are kind of moving through them. And then you also get a little bit of the religion around these two different groups of people that ties into their magic and kind of their purpose as a country. So those are all things that I think make the world building satisfying and immersive throughout the story. Now, the names and the characters I ended up giving an 8 out of 10. The characters were somewhat simple, but I felt like they were very grounded and believable. I will say that personally I felt like there was a little bit too much exposition, especially when giving character background details. Like, it just felt like a big info dump so that we knew who this person was and why they're acting the way that they're acting. And I personally would rather just not know that much about them and just get tidbits here and there. Like, especially in this type of situation, I feel like I don't need to know that much about them. I just need to know how their relationships are and how they're interacting with each other. I thought Captain Roma was fantastic, and Tugs, who's the main character that we're kind of following throughout this story, has just a great emotional impact for the reader as we go throughout this journey and this peril with this group of people. You did a really good job making us hate Lewin and Bracken. Oh my gosh, those characters were horrendous. So anytime an author is able to make me hate a character, I really appreciate that, because you just are hoping for their demise the whole time, and he just does a great job with that. And it was just fun to see this group dynamic of all these different soldiers with different backgrounds and beliefs forced to work together in absolute desperation in order to survive behind enemy lines. There's just that constant conflict and tension and desperation which just forces these decisions and these actions that you can relate to, but that are frustrating and inspiring and all these other roller coasters of emotions that you get to experience with these characters. The magic I gave an 8 out of 10. And like I mentioned earlier, these ethereal warriors basically have a religion system where mages used to be more of a priesthood type position or an honorary position, but because of this war, they got called in to be battle mages. And that's what was able to help them turn the tide against this encroaching empire. And there are levels to how much power these mages have. You have like basic mages that have like very limited access to magic, and so they're basically there to be distractions. They can throw light and make noises and those types of things, but they can't actually make a real impact. But it's good at like scaring the enemy, which I thought was cool. And then you have more advanced mages who can do things like throw fireballs into the enemy forces. There are also some mages who have the ability to go to like the astral plane so they can leave their body and see things as they are in their spirit form. But when they do that, there are these evil spirits who are hunting people with these capabilities. And the mage that's with this particular battalion is using this spiritual magic to basically keep these evil spirit hunters off their scent so that they can keep running and try and get back to their homeland. So I felt like there wasn't a ton of magic, but it was essential to the story. So I can appreciate that. And it does leave a lot of room for questions and future development, I think. So overall, I thought it was pretty good. I think it was, again, simple, but it did serve the story well. The infrastructure was a tough one for me to rate, but I did give it a 9 out of 10, which was high for me because there were things structurally that I had issues with, but I felt like the author did such a good job with the pacing and the tension and the conflict and the plot that I was able to forgive some of the other problems that I had with the infrastructure, which is why I gave it a higher score. So here are some things that I didn't like. I did not like this prologue. And I love prologues, but prologues have to be done well. And I see what the author was trying to do with this prologue, with trying to create an emotional connection to a character, to show guilt, to show the realities of war, etc., etc. But for me, it doesn't really work because we don't establish really an emotional connection within a chapter. Like, we don't care about these characters that much. I would have rather seen, as a prologue for this story, them in the midst of the battle that they fail and have to retreat in. Some of the conflicts and the things that are going on, the chaos, the retreat, and seeing that they're trapped. Like, I would have liked to see a lot of that chaos, see people that are their friends get cut down, the desperation of them trying to get away from all this carnage. I feel like that would have been a way more gripping prologue than like people talking before the fight. I thought that was actually kind of lame. So that's my 2 cents on the prologue. I think it could have been way better and got us way more involved right off the bat. It just felt slow for a prologue. So I felt like we could have done a lot better there. But again, why this is just such a high score on the infrastructure is because of the constant tension, the high stakes throughout the whole story. Any mistake that they make results in casualties every time. They have to always decide between survival and fighting. And I honestly felt like I could just never take a breath because I was just constantly worrying and waiting for something to go wrong. The pacing and the plot were just done super, super well. And like I said, I just think maybe there was a little bit too much exposition and info dumping from time to time. But again, I'm willing to overlook that because of just the movement of the overall story. So my enjoyment was an 8.5 out of 10. I enjoyed this story. It was a simple concept, so it was easy for me to just dive right into this world and these circumstances. And I like military fantasy. I like the aspects of a different approach to a military fantasy where we're seeing them running basically rather than two armies clashing against each other in different strategies. We're literally just seeing a squad of desperate warriors trying to survive, which I thought was a fun and engaging story to read. The characters had depth that kept me engaged and interested. And like I said, the plot just moved forward at an incredible pace to the point where I was able to just cruise through this story and really just never really have to think about it. I could turn my brain off and just kind of read right through it. So that leaves us with an overall score of 8.4 out of 10. If you like David versus Goliath type stories, this is going to be a great one for you. If you want a different type of military fantasy, I think you should give this one a shot. But yeah, easy read, and I definitely recommend it. Now, how about we judge a book by the cover? I would say that I think this cover is good, but it could be better. I think that actually a better cover that might communicate this story better would be a cover like By Blood, by Salt, where you can feature this group of soldiers or a couple soldiers hiding from this massive force of hunting warriors. I think that would have communicated what this story was all about a little bit better. I still liked the cover. I thought it was okay, and it did have elements of the story, but I don't feel like they were as gripping as maybe something like that would have been for the cover. So good, but it could have been better. And then I just read the ebook version, so I thought the map was a little bit simple. Maybe you could have used a little bit more design to it. Wasn't bad. It got the message across, but it just kind of felt too simple for me. But the rest of the formatting was good. So that'll do it for today's indie review. If you made it all the way to the end of this video, be sure to like and subscribe and join the Indie Fantasy Club. I've got plenty other book recommendations that you can check out so that you can add more books to your TBR that fits with your reading preferences. But that's it for now, and I'll see you in the next video.